Welcome into NFL Daily. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today, we are on NFL Fraud Watch heading into Week 4 of the 2025 NFL season. Through 3 weeks, there's certainly some teams that maybe have overperformed expectations. Today, we're going to be talking about which teams maybe are a little fraudulent with their records to start this season off. And also, we'll talk about some teams with slow starts, whether or not they can get back on track. Welcome into the show, guys. If you want to follow me on X for additional NFL content every single day, you can find me at Jack_Sperry. I'm going to be putting out my mid-season NFL quarterback rankings here in just a couple of weeks. If you guys want extensive quarterback content, you guys can find it on my X account at Jack_Sperry. So first here, guys, let's start with the pretenders. All right, these are the people that some people would call fraudulent teams that have good starting records, have gotten off to good starts, all that stuff. The hype is high on them right now. But to be clear, before we get into my pretenders list, because there are quite a few teams that I would consider quote unquote pretenders at this point, you have to be, you can be a playoff caliber team. You just can't be a Super Bowl caliber team. All right. And in order to make this list, the team must be 2-1 or better to be considered for this list. All right. So there's no 1-2 or 0-3 teams that are fraudulent right now or are pretenders. Okay. Only the 2-1 and 3-0 teams are going to be considered for this list. So we'll start here with the most obvious one, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals. All right. You almost lose to the Cleveland Browns in week 1. Did not have a good performance then. Then you lose Joe Burrow, and you're going to lose him for a number of months, all right? And Jake Browning certainly didn't look great against the Minnesota Vikings defense last week. That defense is not good whatsoever. Carson Wentz looked pretty darn good against that defense to start the season. So definitely no faith in the Cincinnati Bengals at this point. But in case you think, the Steelers host is on here talking about an AFC North team, I have my Pittsburgh Steelers on there as well. They are sitting at 2-1. And plain and simply, and I say this on our Steelers channel, Steelers Talk here at Chat Sports, they have not played like a Super Bowl caliber team. In fact, they really haven't played truly like a playoff caliber team. They have been outgained in terms of yardage more than just about any other team in the National Football League to this point. They've really relied on turnovers. The run game isn't getting going, which was supposed to be a big part of their offense. And the defense has given up a lot of yardage. They've dealt with some injuries, but certainly not the start that team was hoping for. Now, they have a lot of new pieces on both sides of the ball there in Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Jonnu Smith, Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay. You got a lot of new pieces there in Pittsburgh, and they're going to be hoping as the season goes on that they can gel a little bit more and play better. But at least to this point, their 2-1 start has been a bit fraudulent. Then we get to the Arizona Cardinals, who are also sitting at 2-1 to start this season. You almost lose to the Carolina Panthers in dramatic fashion in week 2. You lose to Mac Jones and a banged-up 49ers team in week 3. Marvin Harrison Jr., I don't know what's wrong with him, man. He's dropping passes left and right. He's not looking good out there. And then this defense has been pretty squishy to start this season as well. So I think they've benefited from a little bit of a softer schedule to start this year off. And unless they turn things around, I do think the Cardinals are pretty fraudulent right now. Now, this one might be one of the more controversial ones. The 3-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They have 2 starting offensive linemen out for the season. You're going to be losing Mike Evans for multiple weeks here. Baker Mayfield has certainly done a great job to start this season. He's one of the early favorites in the MVP type of discussion right now, and he's had 3 game-winning drives to start this season. I think he's played phenomenally, and he's definitely shown that even, without Liam Cohen there and Dave Canales, and this is now his 3rd straight offensive coordinator, he's able to get the job done. And yes, he's got some talents around him, but he's certainly had some guys taken away from him, not only in terms of weapons, but also on the offensive line. And all that's there. And I think this is certainly a playoff caliber team. But with all the injuries, with all the things going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now, do I really consider them a team that could hoist a Lombardi trophy? Right now, I'm not quite there yet with Tampa, but I'm probably in the minority on that one. Then we get to the Minnesota Vikings, who, I think they don't have a quarterback to get them to the promised land. I think that maybe, because their roster is so good and their coaching is so good, they're going to be sitting around the 8 to maybe 10 win mark at the very most. And that's if they get pretty decent quarterback play. Like if we get Carson Wentz from the Indianapolis Colts season, maybe they get to 10 wins. But is anyone expecting Carson Wentz or J.J. McCarthy to lead this team to a Super Bowl? No, I do not. So certainly I would consider this team pretenders, even though I do think they're playoff contenders at this point. Then San Francisco, losing Nick Bosa for the season, huge. This team cannot stay healthy. They have a number of injuries on both sides of the football at this point. I think the coaching is excellent when Kyle Shanahan on the offensive side and Robert Saleh on the defensive side. But, man, no Brock Purdy. You don't got George Kittle right now. There's a ton of injuries at wide receiver. It seems like Christian McCaffrey is a heel injury, waiting to happen at this point. I hope that doesn't happen, but it certainly seems that way. And I just think that at some point here, it's going to get to a point where these injuries stack up too much. And San Francisco might make the playoffs this year, but I don't think, with the current state of their health status as a team, they can go out and win a Super Bowl. Then we get to the Jacksonville Jaguars, a 2-1 start. Pretty good start. I think their defense has been playing actually pretty decently to start this season. I think their run game with Bashal Tutin, I think Bashal Tutin, man, this rookie out of Virginia Tech is a really good player that not a lot of people know his name because kind of smaller school, Virginia Tech, and then, not a lot of national TV coverage for the Hokies, right? And then he goes to Jacksonville, one of the more boring teams in the league. And, I do think that Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen, that seems like a powder keg ready to explode at any moment. I think this team could actually make the playoffs this year, maybe as a wild card, but I certainly don't think in Liam Cohen's first year here in Duval that they're going to be hoisting a Lombardi trophy. And then this one might be the other controversial one, the 3-0 Indianapolis Colts. Daniel Jones, good for him. He's number 1 in the league in EPA per play and success rate as a quarterback. So good for him, man. He's turned around his career. I do think that you can make a good argument. He's a top 20 quarterback in the National Football League. I love Shane Steichen as a play caller. I think he might be one of, if not the best play caller in football today, certainly in the top 5. It's great to see him get a little bit of success, and I think that defense is a lot better than it gets credit for as well. But with Daniel Jones at quarterback, do I really think he's going to be going up against the league's elite and being able to hoist the Lombardi trophy? Honestly, I don't. I think this is probably a playoff team this year. I think they will get to probably around 10 wins, maybe even 11 wins. Maybe they even win that division this year. But in terms of, winning playoff games, I think they might be capped at 1 with Daniel Jones at quarterback. So take your pick for me down there in the comment section. Which NFL team is the biggest pretender right now? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section for today's pinned question. Just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And while I'm talking about Prize Picks, let me know which NFL team is the biggest pretender right now. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And you and I, we both make decisions every single day, but not all those decisions get you paid. But if you download the Prize Picks app today for free, and you guys get your picks right, you can get paid stone cold cash for getting your decisions correct. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Football season is finally here, and you better believe I'm going to be getting my Prize Picks lineups in all season long. Prize Picks is super simple to play, guys. You just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks also puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Prize Picks also offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. And a new feature from Prize Picks that I absolutely love is injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks will not count it as a loss. So you guys can take a look here at my Prize Picks projection this week. I'm taking the more on rushing yards for Kyler Murray. I'm taking the more on passing touchdowns from Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to take the more on passing yards here for Jalen Hurts. That's a free play, by the way. And I'm taking the more on passing yards for Bills quarterback Josh Allen. If you guys want to get in on the fun today, you can download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on the Prize Picks app today. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, so now let's talk about some early fallers in the National Football League to start this season off. Some teams that had high expectations but have gotten off to slow starts, either 1-2 or worse to start the season here through the first 3 weeks. Definitely going to be interesting to see how these teams with high expectations bounce back after digging themselves into a little bit of a hole to start their 2025 campaign. And again, guys, to be eligible for this particular list, you have to have relatively high expectations, usually playoff or even Super Bowl expectations, and you get off to a slow start to the season. So we'll start start here with the team that just lost on Monday Night Football and another kind of high-profile loss in front of a national audience, and that is the Baltimore Ravens, sitting at 1-2. Now, is it time to panic with the Ravens? I would say no. They have the most points of any team in NFL history that has started the season 1-2. Okay, so they're scoring plenty of points. Derrick Henry needs to get the fumble situation figured out. We'll see if he does. But, that can certainly be a big issue for him if he doesn't get it figured out. I thought Lamar Jackson, took a lot of unnecessary sacks yesterday against Detroit. Now, he's one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback I've ever seen under pressure. But yesterday versus the Lions, it definitely, or earlier this week during the Lions, certainly didn't look great. And that defense has looked a little bit squishy, especially up front with Madubuike out, with Kyle Van Noy out. Their offensive line hasn't looked terrific to start the season either. I don't think it's time to panic. I would still consider the Ravens a Super Bowl contender because I do think they have the talent to get there, especially with Lamar Jackson in there. But it certainly seems like that team is not as unbeatable as they have certainly been in previous seasons. Then Kansas City, also sitting at 1-2. I don't think it's time to panic with them either. I think that, they've played some pretty tough opponents to start their season off. They've had a couple of close losses. Mahomes has carried this offense at times, and it seems like during the Giants game, he developed quite a nice little connection with Tyquan Thornton. You're going to be getting Rashee Rice back. You're going to be getting Xavier Worthy back. You still have Hollywood Brown on the team. You still got Kelsey on the team. And you still have Mahomes and Reed, of course. So I think this defense is going to figure it out with Spags. And what's interesting about Kansas City and Baltimore is that they're both sitting at 1-2, and they're playing each other this upcoming week here in Week 4. So one of these teams, one of these perennial powerhouses with truly elite quarterbacks, is going to start the season 1-3. That is absolutely nuts. And whoever loses that game, man, they're definitely digging themselves a hole that's going to be difficult to dig out of and get back to the NFL postseason this year. So who you got in this week's matchup here between the Chiefs and the Ravens? High stakes matchup here to get back to 2-2 instead of falling to 1-3. Type KC if you think the Chiefs come out on top, or type BAL if you think the Ravens come out on top in that high-profile matchup. Then we get to the Houston Texans sitting at 0-3, and, this has been a team that's had high expectations the last 2 years. They replaced Bobby Slowick as their offensive coordinator, bringing Nick Caley, hoping that was going to fix it, and it just hasn't, man, and I am panicking about the Houston Texans right now. The defense is holding up their end of the bargain. The defense has been keeping them in games, frankly, but the offense just can't make the play in the fourth quarter to deliver it. And, of course, that defense gave up the touchdown to Tampa in Week 2 as well. But, this is just a team that has really bad situational awareness. I think that goes on head coach D'Amico Ryans, who's a brilliant defensive head coach, but he's had some really bad gaffes in terms of situational football so far this year, and it reflects in the 0-3 record. Now, I think that this team is certainly far from the worst team in the league, but is this team good enough to overcome an 0-3 hole to get to probably the 10 wins that they need to get in order to make the playoffs and go 10-4 the rest of the way? I don't think so, man. I really don't. I think they could get up to 8 or 9 wins and knock on the door, but C.J. Stroud hasn't looked good. The run game hasn't looked good. The defense hasn't looked good situationally. I think it's officially time to panic in H-Town. Then we get to the Denver Broncos, who are 1-2. A couple of tough losses. In fact, I think Broncos fans would argue they should be 2-1 because of the leverage call that usually never gets called in the NFL, and the game-losing field goal it would have been from the Indianapolis Colts, giving them another shot, and of course they ended up making it. So I'm not panicking about Denver. Bo Nix actually looks pretty darn good. It looks like he's actually taken a step forward compared to what he was in his rookie season, and he was pretty solid in his rookie season. He looks like a bona fide franchise quarterback inside Sean Payton's offense. The run game is a lot better than what it was last year, and the defense is still excellent. So I think this is still probably a playoff caliber team in the AFC West, so I'm not panicking about the Broncos at all. Then the final team, here's the Dallas Cowboys, and if you ask Jerry Jones before the season if he expected this team to make the playoffs, even without Micah, he would have definitely said yes. Well, you're 1-2, and the one team that you beat was the New York Giants, and you gave up a shit ton of points, excuse my language, to Russell Wilson, who just got benched after 3 weeks, right? So this is the worst defense in the league, arguably. Trayvon Diggs looks terrible. The linebacker play is atrocious. They don't have a pass rush with Micah out of there. I'm panicking about Dallas right now, guys. Especially with CeeDee Lamb out, teams are going to be able to double-team George Pickens. I mean, I have Dak Prescott on my fantasy team. I'm telling you this, I'm not starting him again until CeeDee Lamb gets back out onto the field. I expect this Dallas team to stack losses as long as CeeDee Lamb is out of the lineup. And I think the season's going to be over here pretty soon for them boys. So before I go here, let's break down my contenders list right now. Now, usually by the end of the season, it gets condensed down to 6 or 7 teams that could realistically win the Super Bowl. But I think right now there's 10 teams that, we're still kind of figuring out who these teams are. Of course, it's early in the season, but they certainly are playing at a level that could potentially land them in Super Bowl contention. All right. The reason why Baltimore and the Chiefs make this list is because of the amount of talent on those teams, because of their track records as high-end teams in the AFC. Kansas City is going to be getting a couple of their playmakers back, and I expect their offense to come back in a major way when that happens. But, the 3-0 teams, of course, Buffalo, Los Angeles, and Philadelphia, unquestionably playoff contenders and Super Bowl contenders at this point. You got Los Angeles, Green Bay, and Detroit, who I think are very bona fidely Super Bowl contenders right now. The 2-1 teams that I would say maybe a little bit questionable, Seattle and Washington. Seattle lost versus the 49ers at home in week 1, kind of a shaking game, but they've looked really good, especially Sam Darnold these last 2 weeks. Jackson Smith-Njigba looks like an absolute superstar, and that defense is flying around, even with some players getting banged up. So when they get healthy, I think that Seattle team can be dangerous. Same thing goes for Washington once they get Jaden Daniels back, who led that team to an NFC Championship game last year, and they've only gotten better this season, especially on defense. So those are the 10 teams that I could realistically see right now being contenders. That list will change and morph as the season goes on, of course, but that's where I'm at right now at week 4 of the NFL season. So one last question for you guys before I say goodbye for the day. Who is the best team in the NFL right now? All right. I didn't really rank that list for a reason. It's too early in the season, in my opinion, to do like true rankings that really mean anything. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Who is the best team in the NFL right now? Let me know your pick down there in the comment section. And that'll be it for today's edition of NFL Daily by Chat Sports. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. And click that subscribe button for daily and free NFL coverage right here on this channel every single day.